So we are filming,
Okay,
right?
you asked me for my name and some other essentials. First,
Sure.
my name is Sheldon Kutchner, and I think you asked for where I'm from. Well, born in Detroit, but I'm living in Cincinnati now. When did I enter the service? Well, I've got it right here, and I had a look or I would have forgotten. March of 1944.
Okay. Where did you go? Which one was your first assignment?
Well, my first assignment, when I first got in, when I was first called up, I was sent to Miami, Florida for some General Army introduction. I just remember the day we got there. I remember they issued us a barracks bag. They threw all kinds of clothing in the barracks bag. And we walked through a kind of a narrow hall where there was a doctor or a nurse on each side. And I got vaccinated twice here and twice here at the same time. And believe it or not, I didn't refuse to take the vaccination. Nor did anyone else, believe me.
Okay, so that was the initial basic training, right?
That was the initial training I had. Even though I joined the Air Force, this was just the Army. We were just marching. Am I talking too loud?
No, you're good.
Yeah, we were just marching and learning a little bit of the basics of being in the Army, including waiting in enormous mess lines, chow lines. Like, if you want to learn how to be patient, join the Army. Some of those chow lines were like an hour and a half. I just remember that very well. I was only there for like 30 days before really being assigned. It was just sort of a staging area.
Okay, so how did the assignment work? Did they tell you in advance? Did they give you a choice? Or was it totally random?
You're not given any choice. As I remember, most of the assignments that I was given came by you receiving orders. You're like on a piece of paper. You are ordered to be such a
Sure.
place at such and such a time.
Okay, so from Florida, where did you go?
From Florida, we all wanted to be right away into cadet school, but
Yep.
there was no room for us at the time. So they sent some of us to what you would call, they called it, just give me a minute, it'll come to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was just sort of college training detachment, it was called.
Okay.
We were sent to colleges, maybe all over the country, and we took courses there. We learned to fly in Piper Cubs, although we weren't allowed to solo, and we only got 4 or 5 hours. And mostly we were there really just waiting to be fitted into a cadet program somewhere in the country.
Okay, all right. And then you eventually got assigned to a cadet program?
Eventually, I got assigned to a cadet program, which was in Montgomery, Alabama.
Okay.
And don't quite remember how we got there. I think it was by train.
Okay.
And when we got there, the cadet program was it was sort of a takeoff on West Point. The cadet training was you were an underclassman for 30 days, a grunt, and doing all kinds of crazy things like walking a rat line and answering stupid questions. And then after just 30 days of intensive ground school, you're promoted to be an upperclassman, and you get to yell at the lower classmen and tell them what to do. It was, like I said, it was kind of a takeoff on, I think, on the West Point program.
So which one was your first aircraft that you started taking flight lessons in?
Yes. Then from there, I was sent, after pre-flight, whatever it was, I was sent to Orangeburg, South Carolina, for primary training in the Stearman PT-17. Nice little airplane.
How do you like that?
Oh, it's a great little airplane. Hey, what did I know? I thought it was just, I'm a pilot.
Yeah. There are quite a lot of Stearmans here.
Oh yes, I've
Did
seen
you
it.
check them out?
Well, I've seen them. They're not.
Do you think you can fly them again?
I feel like I could.
Nice.
I feel like
I bet somebody will let you fly if you ask.
I don't. I think I could fly the B-29 again, but I'll bet you I really couldn't. So as long as it has.
All right. So PT-17, I assume you moved on either to a BT-13 or T6.
What happened? You asked what happened after primary flight training. I was sent to Sumter, South Carolina, for basic training. Now, as I recall, that was like 60 days. And after basic training, I was sent to advanced training at Marianna, Florida in the AT-6. And that was the extent of my training.
Okay. Now, at that point, did you know already that you were going to be assigned to the B-29?
No.
Or not?
No. At that point, nobody knew. All we knew is that we were finally graduating from flight school. We were going to be officers, and we were going to be sent somewhere. And we were all stupid at the time. We all really wanted to be able to fly one of those P-51s. I think at that time it was a P-40.
Yeah.
But we had no idea where we'd be assigned. I was assigned to a place called CIS, which is Central Instructors School, which was on Randolph Field in Texas, San Antonio.
Okay. Now, what were your hopes? What were you hoping to fly when you became an officer and waiting for an assignment?
You wanted to know what I wanted to do, how I wanted to be assigned. Let me tell you, I wasn't alone. All of us, everybody in the group, we all wanted to fly fighter planes. We didn't want to be in bombers. We didn't want to be towing targets for bombardiers, for gunnery, or other stupid assignments. And none of us even thought about going to instructors school, but that's where I was sent. I had orders to go there.
So you started as an instructor on AT-6?
No, I learned to be an instructor in BTs, the BT-13.
BT-13.
And then I was sent to Bainbridge, Georgia, to teach in BT-13s.
I was about to say that because I did fly down in Bainbridge, Georgia, and the two World War II hangars are still there.
Really?
They're still there. Yes, they have a little museum with a lot of pictures, and I bet you're in one of those pictures because
that's very interesting.
I live in Atlanta, Georgia, so I'm not that far from Bainbridge. That's crazy.
Anyway, Bainbridge. I didn't know much about the town. We didn't get in very often, but the base was great, and it was enjoyable teaching people to fly.
That's awesome. So, when you found out that you were gonna be assigned to B-29s, were you disappointed, or maybe, well, B-29, it's a bomber, it's a big plane.
Oh,
it's not bad after the role.
No, you wanted to know how I found out I was going to be flying B-29s.
Correct.
I didn't. All I knew was that I got orders to go to learn to fly a B-24. I'd never been in a multi-engine airplane.
Yeah.
So I was sent to a little town near
It's okay. It's okay.
Well, anyway, I was sent for training in the B-24, and I don't remember how long it took. It might have been a month or two, but I got about 100 and some hours in a B-24.
That's how you got your multi-engine.
That's right. And at that time, they must have thought, hey, we're gonna. This is what we're gonna do. We didn't know at the time that we were gonna then be sent to B-29s, which everybody knew at the time was the biggest and the best airplane in the world.
Sure. So, here comes the day that they told you now, next airplane is gonna be the B-29. What do you think about it?
Great. Now, I don't even care if I don't get into P-51s. The B-29 is the state of the art. It's the big thing. I was happy about that.
Okay. So I guess you got sent to a different base and started training in the B-29, basic training in the B-29 somewhere else?
There wasn't. What happened was they sent us to Kearney, Nebraska, where we picked up a crew and got familiar with the crew. No flying. We were then sent to St. Petersburg or Tampa, Florida, MacDill Field, where we learned to fly the B-29. But let me tell you how things were at the time. We already knew how to fly. There was no fancy, excuse me, no fancy training schedule. The guy who was my instructor in the B-29 had just returned from B-17 overseas, and all we did was shoot some landings. I would say maybe 3 hours, 3.5 hours of shooting landings, and that was it. That was the total amount of instruction as such.
So like
in B-29. We knew everything you had to know about 4-engine airplanes.
Yeah, yep.
On the B-24s.
Yeah, talk about a little bit about the flying characteristics and how the airplane handled, if you remember.
Oh, sure, I do remember, and I talked about this at length yesterday, but I will say just that the B-24, to put it bluntly, was a pain in the ass to fly. It was not just difficult to fly, but it resisted everything you did. When you pushed on something, it pushed back, including the rudders, stick, everything. It also had a very narrow wing. You probably know that was called a Davis wing, and that gave it certain great flight characteristics, but it didn't help you when you were coming in for a landing and get caught in prop wash or wing wash. The wing would tend to go down. You'd have to give it power. You might have to go around or something. It wasn't a great plane. Leaving that, well, it was a good plane. It served its purpose in bombing raids forever. But to move from that into the B-29 is to get out of the Model T and get into a Lexus. The B-29 was wonderful. It was, in the first place, it was pressurized. Hey, nothing wrong with that. No more masks.
Yep.
Secondly, it had servos of all kinds. It was like power steering. It behaved beautifully. Even though it was big and you had to learn how to land it, once you did, it wasn't that difficult to land. And it was forgiving. If you landed in a crosswind and did get entirely straight, you weren't going to strip off the landing gear. It was just a good airplane.
Got you. So after the first 5-6 hours, you were checked out in B-29 and I guess shipped overseas?
In B-29s, well, no, we had to stay there and perform a lot of several missions, which were training missions, but we didn't have instructors with those missions. We just had to perform certain activities like bomb training. We had to take our bombardier up in the air and follow a certain pattern, and you may know on a bomb run, you get off the controls, and the bombardier controls the airplane for the bomb run.
Sure.
So we had to go through those exercises along with several others, and I forget how long it took, but I know I was there at least a month.
Okay.
And then I got orders to. Well, I had to go to. There was an intermediate stop. I think it was at Kearney, Nebraska, where we got orders to go overseas.
So we are already in 1945 at this point, right?
Yes,
Okay.
early in 45.
All right. So can you talk about your experience overseas when you got shipped overseas?
Okay. First place, I didn't have an airplane yet. I was reminded by the interviewer yesterday that the plane that took us to Guam was a C-54. it landed at Iwo Jima, and we spent a night there, and then it continued on, and we got to Guam, and I was taken to, I guess, the 39th Bomb Group, to my squadron. I was given an airplane, a certain airplane that was to be mine, a truck that would hold my entire crew. In the back there were seats on both sides for the other crew members, and a 45. I'm not sure who else on the crew got 45s. And what else did they give us? Some silk maps in case we were shot down. They were beautiful. I wish I had them now. In case we were shot down and we're alone, it would tell us where we were and how to walk out. And then, you want to know about my missions?
Go for it.
Okay, I have to tell you about my missions. I arrived less than a month before the war ended. I had to take a couple of orientation flights with my crew before I would be assigned to a mission, even though the 39th Bomb Group then was involved in missions. During that time I had some crazy duties, like one of them was censoring mail. For some crazy reason at the time, officers were considered to be trustworthy, but not enlisted men, and we had to actually read the enlisted men's mail. So that duty was only like a day or two, but I remember it well. Now the missions. First mission was, you'd almost call it a practice mission, but they gave me credit for a mission. I bombed an island that was nearby, and even though there was some small arms fire there, nothing came close to our airplane.
Gotcha.
The second mission, I think, was this. I may have the timing wrong on this, but we took a mission which was a weather mission. We flew into a hurricane with a bunch of weather guys,
Meteorologist.
Anyway, yeah, and then came back and landed. Like I told the guy yesterday, that sounds dangerous. There's absolutely no danger involved in flying into a hurricane.
Back then you didn't know that. Now you do. So what went through your mind? Now you're coming from training. Now this is the real deal. Now we are flying in the war. Did that change your mindset at all?
Well, we knew that. No, I told you people were crazy then. We wanted to be in P-51s, and we wanted to be in combat.
Yeah.
Hey, we're over here. What are we going to tell our kids? So anyway, nobody ever shot at me. I had another couple of inconsequential missions that were not combat, and I flew in the armada of airplanes that flew over the battleship Missouri when President Truman was signing the armistice along with whoever the Japanese guy was.
So what are you still bringing with you after so many years? Is there anything you're still bringing with you in your memory, special?
Well, the war was over, but we were still there, and I flew quite a few other missions that were meaningless, including one taking prisoner of war supplies to Okinawa. That was kind of interesting. And then I had a series of flights returning soldiers, even some airmen who had more time than I had and more points and could get home earlier we really picked them up in Saipan and took them to Hawaii. And there were good and bad parts of that. The best part of it was that even though we couldn't fly our ships then on into the States, we had to go back, but we didn't go back immediately. We had to wait for an opportunity when a 39th Bomb Group airplane was returning to Guam. Well, there wasn't one returning for quite a while, so I was on Oahu for about I don't know, it was about 3 or 4 weeks, and that was great.
That's not bad at all.
Oh, the meals were wonderful at the officers' club. I picked up a Jeep at the motor pool, and I had all that freedom. And
Were you
everything.
flying at all during the time?
Well, I had to pick up my hours so I could get my flight pay. So I went to the flight line and I got on a B-17.
Okay.
And I took. You had to have at least 4 hours in order to get flight pay.
Okay.
So I flew always as co-pilot on the B-17 and had several flights. And that was the only flying I did in a B-17.
Got you.
But I did. And then back to Guam.
Okay. Then that was it, and you returned back to the United States?
All we did was sit around and wait until we had enough, until they finally got to us and they returned us to the States. And
So well after the end of the war, the end of the war, you were still in overseas,
yes.
so
Yeah,
you
much-
didn't come back right away.
Oh no, I wanted to, as did
Yeah.
everyone else, but we were stuck on what we called Guam. And that was it.
Okay. When you came back to the U.S., did you continue flying or you left the service?
I left the service.
Okay. Have you ever flown again?
Yeah, I was in Miami on a vacation, and I knew that National Airline was looking for pilots, and I applied. And you had to have an instrument rating, and I didn't have I had a license, but
Yeah.
I didn't have an instrument rating.
Yep.
So I procured an instrument rating, and I was hired by National Airlines, and I flew a lot of trips on the C-46, but I was always the co-pilot.
Okay.
And my principal duty was just to sit there and to worry about how
Little helicopter, yep.
to worry about how the load was situated in the airplane so that the center of gravity would be all right. And even though I had quite a bit of time in that C-46, I can't tell you that I really flew it. I was a co-pilot.
Okay, and that was it? That was your last flying gig?
That was the end of my flight.
Okay.
I-
You didn't
I-
have interest in continuing, completely change line of business?
I thought about applying to the airlines, and I think I actually went to Eastern Airlines and talked to the people there, and they said, "Oh, there's a waiting list of a year," so I didn't even do anything.
No.
That seemed like a century.
Yeah.
And then I went back to school.
Okay. And you graduated,
I went to law school.
Okay.
I graduated.
you became a lawyer,
Yeah, sort of.
and that's what you did for the rest of your life?
Well, I had a law degree, and I practiced law for several years, and then I was what's called house counsel for a firm for a while, and my activities drifted more into executive requirements instead.
Got you. Is this your first time here at AirVenture? First time here in Oshkosh, AirVenture, or you've been here before?
Let me tell you, I've thought about Oshkosh for years and thought about coming here, but I just never got off my can and came here. But having come here, just blown away. It is so far better and bigger, greater than I had expected.
So, well, next year you're turning 100, right?
Right.
We have to celebrate your birthday here next year.
We're all planning to come back.
Okay. Okay.
But I'd
awesome.
rather do it anonymously. I don't really have.
We'll see about that.
There's one thing he left out. He doesn't talk about having two engines go out on a 29 on the same side
Okay.
over the open ocean,
Okay.
coming from Guam to Hawaii.
You remember that?
Never forget it.
Okay. Go for it. You want to?
You might want to mention that.
You wanna mention that?
Come on.
All pilots have had their problems at one time or another. I was taking a group back from, it was really from Saipan to Oahu, Hickam Field,
Yep.
and we landed at Johnson Island, which is the last island. First there's Iwo Jima, then Johnson. Well, I think Kwajalein comes in there too. But anyway, that's about 4 hours from Hickam Field. Out about 2 hours, we lost an engine. So we feathered it. Then, with no more than a half hour from Hickam Field, another engine went out on the same side. So we feathered that. We were in an airplane that, instead of having 5,000 gallons of fuel, probably had a few hundred. It was very light, and I had no fears whatsoever that I was going to lose altitude. Maintained altitude, called in for a landing, was careful to land because I wasn't sure it would go around, but this is not a big thing. I think any other B-20 pilot could have done exactly the same thing. It was not.
Did they ever find out what was the problem with the engines?
No, no. This was after the war, and I don't think maintenance was that good after the war.
Got you. They all went home and they left the worst guys behind, I guess.
Right.
Very good. Thanks for your service, sir. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for talking to me.
Awesome.